Rico, ready? Good morning, ladies. Beruchim and Imsa'im, welcome. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'nasliyah. This begins our inaugural class for this summer. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should have success and inspiration. It's really to the credit of the attendees to this class, because I know the time is not the most opportune on Fridays. Erev Shabbat Kodesh at 11:30 in Lawrence Avenue Synagogue. Everybody's preparing for Shabbat like they're supposed to. But I think part of the preparations for Shabbat is not only physical preparation by cooking and shopping and making the preparations, but there needs to be a spiritual preparation as well. Shabbat is a spiritual day. So it is worthy to spend a few minutes on Erev Shabbat to exercise the soul. I want you to know also the study on Fridays is much higher than the studies of the other days of the week. I'm not talking about Shabbat. The study of Shabbat is 1,000 times greater than the study of the week, that's for sure. Whatever you study on Shabbat, it's 1,000 times more valuable. But Friday is more valuable than the other 5 days. Number one, because it's a holy day. The Shabbat already, you could feel it coming in. The rays of Shabbat already on the horizon. So the Kiddushah is higher. So anytime the Kiddushah of the day is higher, the Torah is higher. But more importantly, because on Fridays, most people are not learning. Because they're busy. We have a rule. Whenever people are neglecting the study of Torah, and you come along and you assume the responsibility, you receive a compounded reward. You receive a double and a triple and a much higher reward. For example, Purim is one of the best days of the year. Who doesn't love Purim? But one of the things that gets neglected on Purim day is the study of Torah. Who has time to study on Purim? We're too busy doing Mishtalach Manot and having the Seudah and drinking and having a good time. That's really not the day that we have to study. So somebody that will make time, carve out some hours on that day to study Torah, you get credit for the whole world. Because you're doing something that nobody else is doing. For example, on Kippur, Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, it's ironic, on the holiest day of the year, that's probably the day where the least Torah is studied. For the good reason, everybody's in shul praying. Everybody's fasting. Everybody's involved in making vidui. But what about Torah? So there are righteous people that after synagogue on the night of Kippur, they stay an extra hour, they study. Because they know who's studying on Kippur night after shul's finished? On the night of Kippur, everybody goes home, they go to sleep, they want to wake up the next morning. What about when Kippur is over? Oh, I'll give you a secret now. The Kippur is over, you fasted for 25 hours. The whole community, everybody, they let them out of synagogue. Who's learning? Everybody's dreaming about the sambusak, about the whatever they're going to break their fast on. Go tell somebody at 8 o'clock, after they fasted for 25 hours, we're going to have a class now for 45 minutes. Class now for 45 minutes. Let us go. But the great tzaddikim, they used to take advantage of that hour. There was one great rabbi. He used to bring, before he would go to shul on Kippur, he would bring an apple with him and a couple of sweets. He would put it in his kuracha. After Kippur was over, he would sit next to his table, take out his apple, take out a sefer, break his fast on the apple quickly, and learn. And the rabbi, why don't you go home like everybody else? And then come back. He said, who's going to learn? Who's going to be learning in the interim? Nobody's learning Torah. The world needs Torah. During the days of the week, everybody's studying, even the boys in the yeshiva. The kollel is open, the yeshivot are open, there's regular sessions. But Friday at this time, if you go to the kollel now, not only the kollel here in Deal, any kollel in America, that's it. The session over, 11:30, it's over. Everybody goes home. Rightfully so. When I was in kollel, I also went home. We have to prepare for Shabbat. So you're studying now Torah at a time where there's a great need. You're studying Torah on Fridays at this time in the afternoon where even some of the great students of Torah are not studying. So you're holding the world up. You're carrying this great burden. So it's to your credit. It's to your credit that you attend this class. Maybe we should make a class on Wednesday nights at 2 in the morning. If anybody will show up, maybe we should. I don't think anybody's learning at that time either. But we'll start with the Friday morning and see how we do. And then we can go on to the next project. We begin our session with this week's parasha, Parashat Korach. Sorry, we have to talk about Korach. It's a miserable story. Korach. The story is, if you don't know it already, I'll review it for you to give you a courtesy. Korach was Moshe Rabbeinu's first cousin. And he had an issue, he had issues. He was an envious man, he was jealous, he was power hungry, and a lot of other bad things he had. Well, he formed a group, maybe like a union of some sort. 250 rabbis he got with him. And he also got a fellow by the name of On ben Pelet. He was another leader. And he got 2 other fellows by the name of Datan and Aviram. Those are the 2 guys that I want to talk about today. But just so you know the story, before we get into the details, they formed a group and they went to Moshe Rabbeinu and they claimed that he's a nepotist. Nepotist means that he's taking positions of power for his family and his friends. Korach said, hey, why did you take the leadership role and you gave your brother the role of Kohen? Why don't you give everything to your family? Why don't you share the wealth? We also want to have a say in running the Jewish nation. I want to be the Kohen. And the firstborns, for example, they want to run the Beit HaMikdash. So who asked you now to start taking the Kehunah for your brother, removing the firstborns from the service and giving it to the Leviim? All sorts of claims. And it didn't end up so good. You don't have to be a prophet to know who's going to win this argument. Korah against Moshe, it's not fair. Moshe Rabbeinu has a great advantage. Korah wasn't thinking so good. When you get involved in ego and in envy, you lose your ability to make rational decisions. What are you thinking? You're going to fight Moshe? Moshe Rabbeinu is a miraculous man. He brought down the entire Egyptian empire. You're a piece of cake. He brought down Paro. He went up to God and studied for 40 days and 40 nights and did not eat or drink. How could you win Moshe? What were you thinking? But when a person is consumed with envy and jealousy and anger, he doesn't think so much. He becomes insane. And he does things that are so ridiculous. So much has been said about Korah. I'm not going to give him any more airtime. He doesn't deserve it. I want to talk about Datan v'Aviram. Who is Datan v'Aviram? I don't want to talk about movies, but if you remember Edward G. Robinson in the 10 Commandments, I think he was Datan, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not telling you to watch the movie The 10 Commandments by any means. corrupted and a perverted interpretation of the story. Anyway, these two guys, they were troublemakers. But before we talk about their mischievous behavior, you have to know that they were obviously men of stature. How do I know? When the Jewish people came out of Egypt, whoever wasn't worthy to leave Egypt died during the plague of darkness. Actually, 4/5 of the Jewish people died during darkness. Only 1/5 merited to leave. Now, if Datan and Aviram were such crooks and such gangsters, they would have died during darkness, but they didn't. Meaning the sea split for them as well. And they had a prestigious position. They were considered Nisi'e Edah. They were like tribal leaders. They held a prominent position. If I can quote the words of the great Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra says, and I quote, Vedatan va'aviram hayu anashim gedolim. They were great men. Furthermore, when Moshe Rabbeinu wants to make peace with this group, this mutinous group, Moshe wants to negotiate with them. He has nothing to negotiate. He wants to talk to them to make a peace treaty. Who does he call to make the treaty with? With Datan va'aviram. It seems they were the leaders of this movement. Even though Korah was on top, but Moshe Rabbeinu knew that if he can persuade Datan va'aviram, everything will go away. Everybody underneath will just fall into place. Now, it shows you how great they must have been, because they had dealings with Moses. The fact that they had dealings with Moses must be they were great people. Because look who they were associated. They lived in the generation of the Midbar. The generation of the Midbar is called Dor De'ah. The generation of intellect. I don't know, look at every person. Moshe, Aharon, Miriam. They were all, Yehoshua. Everybody was a superstar. Everybody was a spiritual giant. Imagine you can go to a class every day, and who's giving the class? Moses. Shabbai Sayed. And that's what they did. That's who their rabbi was. If you went to somebody that was living in the generation of the Midbar, and you would say, excuse me, who's your rabbi? Oh, maybe you heard of him, Moshe Rabbeinu. Oh, come on. Really, who's your rabbi? Yeah, my rabbi is Moshe Rabbeinu. I go to his classes. You go to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's who their rabbi was. And when Moshe can't make it, I go to Aharon, his brother's class. And on Tuesdays we have a class with Miriam and Miriam the prophetess. Why? This is the holy generation. And Datan va'aviram were members of that generation. You know what the Gemara says? Even the maidservant of that generation had prophecy greater than the prophet Yehezkel. They all stood at the foot of Sinai and heard God's voice when God said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. They weren't delusional. They heard God's voice. This is something that no other generation collectively experienced. So, what was the flaw, the character flaw of Datan va'aviram, that they ended up getting swallowed under the ground? Because I don't want to ruin the end of the story. If you didn't read the story, I don't want to ruin the ending for you. But the end of Korah and his whole debate against Moshe, the ground opened up and swallowed Korah, Datan, Aviram, and the whole group. They got a miserable death. I mean, it's like a sinkhole opened up. Imagine the mouth is like eating, just devoured them, and they were gone. Just as a side point, I didn't come to tell you this, but somebody asked me in the morning in the synagogue, why was that their punishment? Why the ground has to open up? What's the message? I told them, God's teaching us a lesson of not spending your life in mahloket, in fighting. Life is too short to involve yourself in arguments and politics and all these type of things, because you have a purpose, you have a job to do. You came to this world with a mission, to do mitzvot, to elevate yourselves. There's not too much time to waste in going backwards, in fighting, and phone calls back and forth, and he said and she said, and I'm going to do this and that. So you're wasting time. Forget about the dangers of mahloket. I don't want to talk. Mahloket is the worst disease that exists from all the diseases in the medical books. Mahloket is the most dangerous. Mahloket means when you make schisms between people, when you divide and you make arguments. There was two people that came to a rabbi and they said, "Rabbi, we have an argument." The rabbi said, "What's the argument?" One man said, "This land belongs to me." And the other man said, "This land belongs to me." They were arguing. So the rabbi said, "I have a simple solution. Let's go to the land and ask. We'll ask the land." "Well, ask the land? What are you talking about?" "Yeah, watch." So they go to the land, and the rabbi puts his ear to the land, and he says, "Oh, yeah? Oh. So he goes back to them, he says, "You say the land belongs to you, and you say the land belongs to you, but the land says both of you belong to it. Because at the end, both of you are going to be buried in the land. You don't own the land owns you." What the rabbi was trying to say, stop wasting time. Make peace. At the end of the day, you're going to end up under the land that you're arguing about. And then what is it going to mean in the end? And then what is it all worth? Korah forgot that one day he's going to end up under the land. He thought he was going to live forever, so he's fighting and he's arguing. And God says, you forgot that nobody lives forever, and you forgot that the time is very short, and you forgot you have a purpose. So the ground opens up to remind all of us that one day, in 120 years, the ground is going to open up on us as well. And therefore, make peace. You didn't come to this world to make enemies and to make fights with people. That's a sidetrack. That's a diversion. The ground is going to open up on everybody one day. But then it's too late. These Datam Ba'aviram, these people, the first time we're introduced to them is not in this parasha. We're introduced to them all the way back in the book of Shemot. You remember when Moshe Rabbeinu, he was raised in the palace. Batya, the daughter of Paro, took him in the basket, took him to the palace, and Paro raised Moshe. Moshe sat on Paro's lap. It's an ironic story. He's trying to kill the Jewish savior, and meanwhile he's giving him a bottle. He's sitting here as the Jewish savior on his lap. Anyway, Moshe grows up, and one day he looks out the window and he sees what they're doing to his brethren. The Egyptians were like Nazis. The Nazis, Yamash Shemam, persecuted the Jewish people for 5 or 6 years. The Egyptians did it for 210 years. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, this is terrible, this is an injustice. So he went out to help the Jewish people. That was day 1. On day 2, he goes out again, and the pasuk says, "V'hineh sheneh anashim evrim nitzim." He saw 2 Jewish people fighting. This bothered Moshe Rabbeinu. So he goes up to them and says, "Hey, Rasha, lama takere'echa? You wicked man, why do you raise your hand to your friend?" From here the rabbis learned that when a person raises his hand to his friend, he's called Rasha. Just by going like this, you cannot raise your hand to your friend. So, we want to know, Who are these people? Who are these wrestlers? Who was in the boxing match over here? It doesn't tell us. It just says, Shnei Anashim. Two people, Nitzim, they were quarreling. So that she tells us that these guys were actually Datan v'Aviram. Oh. So already on day 2 already we met these guys. They're quarreling. So Moshe does the right thing. You're not supposed to let two Jews kill themselves. He refereed. He came in and hey, break it up. So they come along and they tell Moshe, Mi samecha le'ish har v'shofet alenu. Who died and left you in charge? Who made you all of a sudden the referee of the world? And then they all of a sudden tell him, are you gonna kill us like you killed the Egyptian the day before? Wait. The day before, Moshe Rabbeinu saw an Egyptian beating a Jew. So Moshe killed the Egyptian and he buried him. So the Aviram, the next day say, oh, you're going to kill us? Like you're going to kill, like you killed the Egyptian? So Moshe Rabbeinu says, oh boy, these guys are dangerous. They're going to go to Paro, they're going to rat me out, I'm going to be in trouble. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to run away. He could not stay in Egypt because now already there was witnesses that saw what he did. He cannot just kill an Egyptian like that. He'll get in trouble. Keep this story in your mind. I'm going to get back to it. I just want you to know episodes of Datan v'Aviram. There's another episode of Datan v'Aviram. When Moshe ran away, he lived in Midian for 40 years. God comes to Moshe one day and says, okay, Moshe, you can go back to Egypt. Because those people that were trying to harm you, they're dead. Meaning, Datan v'Aviram, those troublemakers, they're dead. Rashi says, they really didn't die. Because we know they didn't die because they're still alive in Parashat Korah. Rashi says, they lost their money. And the Gemara says that somebody that loses their money, it's as if, to a certain degree, that they're dead. They lose a part of their existence. So God told Moshe, you don't have to worry. Datan v'Aviram used to be wealthy, so they had influence. People used to take them seriously. Now they lost all their wealth, so don't worry, they can't make any trouble for you. Go back. They won't be able to cause you any harm. So Moshe Rabbeinu went back. And he goes to Paro and he tells Paro, you know the story, could you let the Jewish people go? Paro says, what? You came all the way over here to tell me to let the Jewish people go. Not only am I not letting them go, but now, till now I was providing the cement. And now the Jews are going to have to make their own cement. Which means Moshe Rabbeinu went to rectify the situation and temporarily it got worse. I read Pasuk. Moshe's coming out of the palace now, him and his brother Aharon. They just had this historical meeting with Paro. Although they didn't get the desired results that they wanted. Pasuk. Vayifki'u et Moshe ve'et Aharon. And they met Moshe and Aharon, nitzavim nikratam. There were two people standing outside the palace, and they see Moshe and Aharon. B'tzetam me'et Paro, vayomeru alehem. So they tell Moshe and Aharon, Yereh Hashem alechem, v'yishpot. God should judge you. You have given Paro a sword in order to attack us with. And they started leveling claims against Moshe, these two people that stood outside the palace. And they said, what did you do? Who asked you to get involved, Moshe? Look what you're doing to us. You only made it worse. Before you came, the work was moderately difficult. Now that you came, the work is much more difficult, considerably difficult. You should be judged. Who are these two people that leveled the claim against Moshe? Take a guess, ladies. Don't be... very good. So smart. Datan v'Aviram. Exactly. The same guy, the same wise guys that told Moshe, who died and left you boss in charge, And then you're going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian. Those the guys 40 years later, they're standing in front of the palace. Oh, hey, who asked you to go talk to Paro? What are you doing? You only made it worse. These are the same guys that when Moshe Rabbeinu made a speech one day and he said, please, Rabotai, starting tomorrow morning, the man is going to fall from the heavens. You're going to eat man. That's heavenly food. It's the food of angels. But Moshe Rabbeinu said there's certain rules about the food of man. You don't have to worry about glat. It's all glat, Bet Yosef, Yashan, Alam Yisrael, all that other stuff is not the issue. Bugs, that's not the concern of the man. There's other rules when it comes to man. The rule is you cannot leave over till the morning. You have to consume it all that day, but don't put it in your cupboards. Don't try to store it for the next day, because whatever you're going to store for the next day is going to get all spoiled. The shelf life for the man is one day. That's it. And of course the Pasuk says, Vayomer Moshe al yotir, don't leave over. Velo shame'u el Moshe, they didn't listen. Vayotiru anashim imenu ad boker. And there was people that left over. And sure enough, as Moshe said, it corroded, it spoiled. She says, who are these people that left over that defied Moshe? I see, you're nervous to answer. I'll answer for you. Datam v'aviram. So they have a long history. So when we read about them in Parashat Korah, we know these people already. Datam v'aviram have a long resume. They have a long criminal sheet already written on them. This is not the first time Moshe encountered Datam v'aviram. He knows them already. When he sees them walking down, here they come again. He knows that they're not coming to collect tzedakah. He knows they're coming for trouble. So, please, if you can let me explain to you a very important character flaw that Datam v'aviram had. Once I explain to you this flaw, you'll see that this was the problem with these two guys. As great as they were, they lived in a great generation, they saw miracles in Egypt, they should have had great potential to become great men. But they couldn't get over this character flaw that they had, and this brought them down, and this can bring everybody down. I hope I can explain it to you clear. There's a certain trait that says a person has to mind their own business, not to interfere in other people's situations where it's uncalled for. You see, in life, there's an imaginary line. You cannot see it, but you have to know it through common sense, that past this line you're imposing. Past this line you're going into somebody else's personal business where you don't belong. I don't know, I recall this. A nosy body. There's a lot of words. In Yiddish, they call it a yenta, maybe, of some. I'm not so sure if that's the right word. But there's words that we all know where people stick their nose in where it doesn't belong. They meddle. They're always involved in the politics. They're always involved in the stories. They don't know how to just stay to themselves. They always have to have an opinion, even when they're not asked for their opinion. Their ears are very big. They always hear everything that's being said, even though if it doesn't pertain to them. They always stick themselves in the middle somehow. This is a very, very bad midah. There is a certain trait that says, stay in your own territory. Do not go out. Do not trespass. We know people like that. There's another word in Yiddish, only because I know this from being around a little. A macher. If you ever heard that word. Macher is somebody that's always thinks he's in charge and going around. And we had guys like that in school. When I was in Magen David, we used to have the Rabbi, Hacham Baruch Alav Shalom, our master and teacher. He ran the minyan. And Rabbi Greenis Alav Shalom was another great master. He was the dean of the school. And we would pray. We were young boys in 6th grade. And we would have to sit in our seats in the minyan and pray. You couldn't move out of your seat. But there was one guy, always that would be walking in the front and the back and opening the hechal and putting the books and do that. And going whispering in somebody's ear and taking this and moving there. He was always moving around, not because he was a hyper person. He wasn't hyper at all. That wasn't his issue, hyper activity. But he was a macher. He said, "What's the problem? Just sit down already." And I'll never forget Rabbi Green's wife told me, who you to sit down? You're not running this minyan over here. You're just a student like everybody else. But they have to have the hand in everything. They have to know what's going on at all times. They have to know everything. If there's a private conversation, they have to know what's going on in it. They're everywhere, like a spy, like a KGB. They're all over the place. And I'll never forget, it made a big impression when Rabbi Green told the guy, just sit down already. What are you doing over here? You see, that boy doesn't know his place. He doesn't know his position. And there's people, unfortunately, that don't know their position. You'll see, it'll happen. You'll be talking to somebody privately, and it's clear that it's private. Your face will show that it's private. The gestures, the movements of the body will show that it's private. You will know when people are talking privately and when they're just talking casually. The body language gives it away. Again, whatever I'm telling you today, you have to have a drop of common sense. You cannot learn this in the book. It doesn't say in the book, halachot of being a nosy body. There has to be a certain knowledge that you know just from being around. And you'll see people when you're having a private conversation, somebody will just walk in and stand there to the conversation. So now you have to stop talking. But that's imposition. You trespassed just now. Why don't you respect somebody else's territory? You're not allowed to just come in and put yourself where you don't belong. Go back. What you'll see in life, you'll have neighbors that know everything you do. They follow your every movement. They know where you went. They know when you came back. Which is not so bad because neighbors are going to see things on the block, but they have to let you know that they know. That's where it becomes too ticklish. It becomes too close. Why are you coming so close to me? You went away? Sometimes it's just conversation, but sometimes it's too personal. What are you getting involved in me? Why I went, how long I went? Even in conversation, even if you know information about somebody, but this type of person needs to let everybody know that he knows everything about you also. That's part of his modus operandi. That's the way he operates. Nosy body, I don't think there's a better word for this. But it becomes uncomfortable. This was the trait of Datam va'Aviram. On the first day, Moshe Rabbeinu sees them fighting, so Moshe Rabbeinu does what's correct. He just wants to break up a fight. This is the correct thing. You cannot let two people beat themselves up. And what's the first thing that Datan v'Aviram tell Moshe? Are you going to kill us like you killed the guy yesterday? Already they're telling Moshe, we know what you did, we know your business, we know. Oh. Which means the nosy body stores information, watches, and has a file on everybody. And waits to take that information out in order to use it against that person. It's an amazing thing. It's a good memory. Oh, all the information is fine. So that person doesn't go, oh, yeah, 2 years ago, I remember when you saw me. What are you going to get involved what I did? So right away, Datan v'Aviram say, oh, we saw what you did yesterday. You killed we were watching you. You're going to kill us like you, oh. And then they come along and say to Moshe, 40 years later when he comes back, and he's coming out of the palace, and they come along and start saying, hey, we know what you told Paro. You're only making it work for us. Who made you the spokesman of the Jewish people? There's 3 million Jews in Egypt. Who were the only 2 people that were standing outside the palace waiting for Moshe? That they know they're waiting. Because they have to be involved. Because what they have to do is, they're going to go back to the people. Yeah, we went, we saw Moshe, we told them. They're involved. Wherever there's any action, they're there. Who's asking you for your opinion over here? Moshe Rabbeinu came to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. God told him to do it. So if there's a little setback, God knows what he's doing. Let Moshe Rabbeinu operate. No, they have a criticism. They have to be involved in the decisions. They have to be involved. They have an idea. Moshe Rabbeinu is a tzaddik. He should tell Datan v'Aviram, mind your own business. He should chop their nose off. But Moshe Rabbeinu is too humble. This trait that I'm talking to you today is a form of modesty. When we talk about tzniut is a very big subject. Tzniut starts over here and ends down the block, very wide. Unfortunately, whenever you hear of tzniut, the first thing that signals in your brain is the hemline and the neckline. That might not be so bad, but it's only this section. Tzniut is a long study. Part of it is necklines. Part of it is dress code. But it doesn't end there. By no means. Tzniut is a certain way of life that a person acts in a private way. When you put yourself where you don't belong, that's immodesty. Because you're going into somebody else's area. Even if you're wearing a dress. It could still be that the behavior is immodest. Listen to what I'm telling you. There was a great rabbi, the Gemara says, Rabbi, when he used to walk, he would not look more than 4 amot outside of his territory. He would walk just looking enough that he doesn't hit himself into a pole. But he didn't gaze so much. His eyes were very focused, just a few feet ahead of him. And the Gemara says he was very humble and very modest. The modest person is not a curious George. When he's walking, he's looking, everything going on. They're looking for action, they're looking to... That's a modest person. He doesn't look so far. He keeps his eyes on his own territory. God forbid, if A fire truck comes down the block. You see two people. One person goes out to see if everything's okay, and he goes back inside. And then there's other people that are standing right there, and they're looking, and they're pushing. They're curious, but there's no need for you to be there. You're imposing now. Not because you're in the way of a Hatzalah driver. I'm not talking about that's the Rashad. That's the worst. That's already, a person has to be, he's guilty of murder if he's getting in the way of people that are saving lives. But what are you doing there? This is not your subject, but I'm curious. I want to see if they're heading and looking. But there's somebody on a stretcher. This is his personal thing, God forbid. He doesn't need you to, you're looking at him where he's not supposed to be looked at. And it's very hard to control that tendency to be curious, to put ourselves in somewhere where we don't belong. And don't misunderstand me to say that you have to be selfish and only mind your own business, not get involved in anybody else's life. Of course, if there's a need and there's a purpose, of course. But we're talking where it's uncalled for. It's immodest. It's immodest. When two people are talking privately, it's immodest to interrupt a conversation or to stand there to put yourself in. It's immodest to ask people questions or talk about things that you know about them that there's no purpose to say. That's the imaginary line. Where there's modesty of such a behavior, there's a certain class. You know what class is? Class is a certain a royalty or regalness. Those people that are keeping to themselves, they have a certain midah of elegance, or certain higher level to them. But those people that are always in the middle of everything, it's cheap. Not only it's an annoying, it's a cheapening of the character. The Gemara says, those that are not modest, it's zol, it's cheap. Things of great value are usually concealed. If I have a diamond and I give it as a gift, I don't just give a diamond like this. I put a diamond in a box. And in the box I put in another box. And then I put wrapping paper on the box. And then I put a ribbon on the box. And then I put a tie on the box. Because things that are covered and are private are more important. Even though you know they're going to rip the box open, but the presenting of a thing that's covered has a more... And I'm not talking about dress. I'm forgetting about dress. That's the last thing I'm talking about today is dress. People that are private, that don't expose themselves to others, to reveal themselves to others about their personal, or do they involve themselves in other, that brings them to a certain class, a certain hashivut. I'll tell you how far it goes. From George Washington, the first president, to recent history, a president, part of his honor and kavod was that he's not so accessible, or he's not so available. You don't see the president so much. Maybe 3 times a year he gives a derasha on public television, State of the Union, and other important speeches, but everybody knows if the president is going to be on TV, this is important. And by keeping that distance, so everybody, this is important. But when the president of the United States, as we have today, is on television every night, and every other night there's a talk and there's a speech, so the whole concept of it's too exposed, it's too close. It becomes cheapened in the eyes of the people. Oh, he's on again. Oh, what else? What is that? It becomes now the whole. See, even people in position have to know how to keep the position honorable. That's a lack of tzniut, speaking every single night in front of the people. It's a lack of modesty. And when there's a lack of modesty, when you're intruding always into everybody's house to give a notice, he's here again, here he is again. Well, now what do you want to tell us? It's an imposition, and it becomes cheap. I cannot overemphasize it. Nobody ever talked about this midah, I don't think. But it's so important, you have to know your line. Before you talk, you have to say, is it appropriate what I'm saying? Or maybe it's not my place. You have to always think, is it my place? And if it's not your place, you have no right being there. And if you're going to put yourself there, it's immodest. It's immodest behavior. You know, there was a story in the Torah of Bil'am. We're going to read it next week. Bil'am got up to curse the Jewish people. He couldn't curse them. He ended up blessing them. One of the things he said in his blessings was, Matovu alecha. Oh, how beautiful are your tents. He got so impressed by the tents. I don't know what you can get impressed by a tent. It's not a house. There's no Spanish tile roof. They don't have a dish for the cable. What did he see in a tent? It's a very simple structure, but he got all excited. He says, Matovu alecha. So the Gemara says, you know what he saw? Not the quality of the material of the tents, but the positions. He saw that no two tents were facing each other. That when you looked out of your house, you couldn't see directly into your neighbor's house. Bil'am, the worst criminal, the worst anti-Semite, when he saw that, he said, wow, that's impressive. He saw the way the Jewish people live in the perfect way. They position their lives where they cannot see into somebody else's private business. They're not looking out the window seeing when they're coming, when they're going, their tents are not. Good fences make good neighbors. Everybody, of course, if there's a need, I'm not talking. If there's a need, then everybody has to come and involve. But otherwise, even Bil'am got impressed by such a way. And he blessed, he said, Matovu alecha. But there's one more caveat to this talk. It's an amazing thing. You come to Torah class, and you're going to walk out soon in a couple of minutes. I will let you go, B'ezrat Hashem. And they'll say, what did the rabbi talk about? So don't be a nosy body. What? What are you talking about? You went to class? Where does it say that in the Torah? There's a book on don't mind your own business? Where's that written? Everything's in the Torah. See, people don't know what Torah is. People think you come to Torah class and they're brainwashing you of some sort. They're telling you to, go fight some holy war that's being fought somewhere in the world. And they're making you do things in a robotic way. But if somebody would come to us and say, something, this makes a lot of sense what the guy's saying. He's right. He's absolutely right. We all know these people. They're annoying. That's what he's teaching you. Don't be nosy. It's phenomenal. That's what the Torah is. The Torah is a Torah of life, not a Torah of archaeology. It's not an antique. The Torah has application to every situation and to every character trait. But I want to tell you, it has application as well, even in religion. See, here's where people think, he's talking about private, mundane things. But religion, that's my subject. Then I can stick my nose in, because Torah. And then I can start telling people, what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, and then my 2 cents are worth something now. Rabbi's only talking in the private areas of life. But if I see somebody making avon, then he's not talking about that. Then you have to go in. Then there's no siniut on that. Then you just have to cross all the barriers and wage war. So let me just bring you one story. The story of Pilegesh Begiv'ah. One day I'll elaborate on this story. It's an amazing story, maybe the most horrific story in all of the prophets. There was a guy, he had a concubine. Don't get nervous. A Pilegesh is like a half-wife. And he went on a trip to the Binyamin area of the Jewish people, where Binyamin lives, that section. And don't ask what happened. The people of Binyamin were terrible, like Sodom people. They took the guy's concubine, and Barmanam, they raped and they violated her, and Jews. The biggest avonot, and they returned her the next morning dead. You can imagine, just Jews. Wow. The guy, of course, went to the rabbis and told the rabbis what happened. And he showed them, this is... The rabbis convened, and it says that they went and they decided to go to war against Binyamin. Because these people of Binyamin have bad traits. They committed a travesty. We have to teach them a lesson. So you have the 11 tribes are going to now fight. It's a civil war. Because we cannot let this go unpunished. We have to kill the perpetrators. We have to kill the evil people. So you have a classic war between good guys and bad guys. It's all the good guys against Binyamin who are the bad guys. They go out and fight the war. There are thousands of deaths, thousands of casualties. Guess whose side had all the casualties? The good guys. Binyamin wins the war. And the rabbis are scratching their heads. How can it be? This is a classic example of good against evil, and the evil's going to win again? And you know what the Ramban says in such an unbelievable insight? He says, and I quote his words, it's in Bereshit Yutet, Pasuk Chet. Ulfi da'ati, shezeh onsham shel Yisrael lehinnagef. The reason why the Jewish people lost the first war, mepnei shelo hayta milchama na'asit min ad-din, because it was not fought legally. והגדר עצמו על שבט בנימין היה מוטל לעשותו ולא עליהם. Binyamin, they have courts, they have their judges. It was their business to take care of it. It was an internal affair in the tribe of Binyamin. The Ramban says, היה מוטל על בנימין לעשותו ולא עליהם. What are you, Bnei Yisrael, sticking your nose into the private business of Binyamin? They have a court system. They have rabbis. They'll make the decision. They'll make the rulings. Wow, what did Ramban? You know what the Ramban saying? But this is religious. What do you mean? I'm not sticking my nose in to see what kind of car he bought. I'm not sticking my nose in to see what dress, I'm doing something for God. I'm killing people that committed avon. But it's not your business. They have their own rabbis. Let them handle it internally. Who asked you to come from outside and get involved in this business over here? Wow. So even on Torah things, it's possible where you could be out of line. This happens all the time. Please forgive me what I'm going to say now. I don't mean to offend any of the great tzaddikim or the great rabbis. But many rabbis come from all over the world, and somehow they end up coming to our community to collect money or for whatever reason. But they come from different communities and have different customs and different dynamic. And for the few weeks that they're here, they get involved in the policies. And they start to say, no, this, why is the community doing this? They should do this, they should do that. And they should accept converts, they shouldn't accept, and they shouldn't do this halakha, they shouldn't do, oh. But they're coming with religion, with books. We're coming with books. We don't run a community with books. Our hachamim that lived in this community for tens of years have a pulse of what's good and what's bad. You cannot come from the outside and now start giving policy the way you live in Jerusalem, or policy the way you live in Bnei Barak, or in Mexico, or Argentina. There is hachamim that are here that understand. So these are nosy bodies in religion. You can be a nosy body to start imposing Jewish law on people. We have to be careful from this. Every community has their minhag. Every community has their ways. Every community has their leaders. So to come along and say, but I hold differently, but you don't live here. Go back to where you came from. Here's money for the yeshiva and go away. But to come along now and undermine. And people get confused. But I asked the rabbi in Israel, he told me it's okay. But and even man to man in religion, we have to be careful. We have to be careful. You know my opinion already. To come and impose even modest dress on people. In my opinion, this is not correct. Everybody's well intended. But if somebody's standing ready to march down at a wedding, we have to be careful. But religion, but a person's going to react negatively to that. A regular person. I'm not talking about people that want to be guided. Even well-motivated intentions, we have to, but maybe you're going too beyond your border. In the name of modesty. In the name of modesty, but you're doing this section of modesty, but what about this section of modesty? You're imposing. We all have the same objective. We want everybody to be tzaddikim. But it has to be executed in the right way. We're not going to start teaching a lady modesty 14 seconds before she's about to march at her daughter's wedding. That's not when we're going to start teaching Hilchot Tzniut. You're too late. Hilchot Tzniut is a 30-year lesson. That's the way it's supposed to be done, the long way. Not the shortcut, the second before, put this on. What happened? Who are you? What are you doing? What are you telling me? I paid for this wedding. Go away from me. You tell me what to do. And I understand both sides. I understand the do-gooders that want to save the world. It's unbelievable. They have great passion. They're going to go to Olam Haba to the highest level. They have great passion. We need people that are passionate for the Torah. But I understand the other side as well. What are you doing? Hey, oh. And I can understand it creates now bitterness. Because nobody you went past the line. Don't tell me what to dress now at my own way. I don't want to sound Chas v'Shalom sacrilegious. You see, I want to succeed more than anybody. I want it to work. I don't want it to backfire. That's my point. The Gemara says sometimes there's a shortcut that's a long road, and sometimes there's a long road that's a shortcut. The shortcut, we won the little battle. We got them to cover as they're marching 22 feet. But now what's the result? They're bitter, we're upset, now we're going to show. So what you do? You won a battle. So you have a shortcut, but now it's a long road. But sometimes you have a long road, that's the short way of doing it, through education, through understanding. Look how far all of us came. through education, through respecting everybody's level, through tolerance, in religion. I saw the great rabbis of this community, and they didn't impose. It was out of love. It was out of ahava. Of course, they educated, but everybody can make their free choice and their free will. But it wasn't, I'll leave you with one example, just so you know. A child is sick and the mother wants to give the child medicine. There's two ways to give a child medicine. You could take the Robitussin, that has a foul flavor, and you say to the boy, come here, little boy, I'm going to give you medicine. Or he sees the medicine, I don't want to take this. He runs for his life, and the mother grabs it, and the child is gagging on it, doesn't want it. Or the mother buys a sugar medicine, sugar-coated medicine, a candy medicine. And then the child comes to the mother, Mommy, I think it's time for me to take my medicine, because it wants to have the candy. Religion is the same way. In our generation, at least. Maybe in the older generations it was not like that. It has to be, people are sensitive. People today are fragile. They don't want to, don't be too close to me. Don't tell me what to do. Don't preach to me. There's a negative reaction to that, right or wrong. I'm just telling you the reality. And if you're not like that, God bless you. So you'll tell me, Rabbi, I love it. Let them preach to me all day long till tomorrow, to the moon. I love to be preached to and to be told to. You're righteous. But I'm talking about the mainstream, the big demographic of the community is not like that. So we have to be sensitive to that feeling. And I go, Torah, mitzvot, tzniut, anything, halakha. At all costs, this is not a proper way. The tribe of Binyamin did wrong, but the Jewish people also did wrong. This was not your fight. They should have fought it internally. You had no right to cross that border to go fight the war of Binyamin against them. And that was Datan v'Aviram. Always criticizing Moshe. Always standing there. Well, we know, you did, you didn't. Go back to where you came from, Datan v'Aviram. And that's what happened in this parasha. Korah! Datan right there. Oh, Moshe, you did, you took leadership. Here you are again. Involved. Be'ezat Hashem, ladies, if we can, everybody stay in their position. Everybody stay where they're supposed to be. Then you have modesty, then it's royal, then you become dignified. You become, people say, oh, this is Atzilut. This Atzilut is like princely behavior. It's very, 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 very special. Ladies, I have to make an announcement for my dear friend Rico. I know that's why he's walking back and forth, because he thinks I forgot. I didn't forget. We have a website, learntorah.com. Learntorah.com. Go to the website. Today we launched a virtual Chinese auction online. I don't know if they ever did this before. A Chinese auction on the computer. Don't ask me how they never do bake sales maybe soon on the computer also. But this is a Chinese auction. They have all different type of things. Most of the things you don't need, I know. But we need the money to run the websites. You could live without these items, I'm sure. But the website cannot live without the funds. So go to the site. Everybody should contribute something to these gifts. And Be'ezat Hashem will be able to continue to promote Torah. I think we have 84 countries all over the world. Also, I want to say